This is the DualSense Edge from Sony, the absolute pinnacle of pro gaming controllers, the best that Sony have ever made. That is an incredibly premium and robust case. And look at the attention to detail here on the zippers. You got the little PlayStation logo, you got one here. You've also got a little hook there. You can put a lanyard on that. So immediately the feel feels exactly like the original one, but maybe a bit more sturdy in a way. And if you look closely at the touchpad, you can see the X, square, circle, triangle symbols are way more prominent and actually etched into the surface. And this piece here is way more glossy than the original as well, and kind of almost has a slightly bluish tint to it. And another detail that's kind of changed here is they've actually added more texture onto the R2 and L2 buttons with those square, circle, X, triangle etchings on the ends of them. So that means your fingers won't slip off as much as they do on the other versions of the pad. And these buttons here on the base are function buttons. So if you hold one of those down and push any of the buttons here, you can actually map that to activate a different profile. So you can have a series of different button profiles for this one controller. Without having to go into the settings, you can modify the button layouts just by holding these function buttons and choosing the shortcut. The actual buttons are clear plastic and then black underneath, characters actually being the same color as the pad itself. Now these are killer features, particularly when it comes to shooters. So these switches here adjust the amount of movement of the triggers. So this kind of trigger action here, where it's just a slight movement, that's sometimes referred to as a dead shot trigger on the Pro pads that were custom made from original Sony pads. So Sony have actually integrated that into their own design. And see this little switch here? That's a release switch. Check this out. Once you hit that switch, this front cover comes off completely, and then you can actually change the thumbsticks entirely. So if you get any stick drift on your pad after hours and hours of gaming, all you need to do is open it up, lift this lever here, pull out the thumbstick and buy a new one, slide the new one back in, lock it down, put this back on, and then bam, no more stick drift. I actually have 3 pads right now. The one that came with the console, that's got stick drift. I got a modified one, that's also got stick drift. And I've got a purple one, has a tiny bit of stick drift. I've had to change the dead zones just to reduce it a little bit, but it's getting there. So it's really great that we now can solve that problem very quickly with a pad like this. So probably the #1 reason why you'd want to get this pad over a regular pad is the addition of the back paddles. That's why I bought a customized pad in the past, but that was a third-party pad, and because they customized it, it did actually reduce the amount of warranty on the pad itself. So the fact that this is first party is a big deal. And the fact that you can modify the type of paddles is also a big deal. So I'm definitely a fan of these sort of longer ones. These back paddles are metal and kind of gunmetal in finish. But Sony also offer these kind of shorter options. Now, I'm not sure which one of these is going to work best for me, but I will be trying them out. And they just magnetically drop in there so easily. Minimal effort. And they feel sturdy and strong as well. They don't feel flimsy at all, even though they're very thin. And I can actually see these ones, the shorter ones, being just as good as the paddles, to be honest. These actually feel a bit more tactile. You can actually feel the sort of clickiness a bit more, so you know that you've actually pushed it. I'm kind of torn between which one I want to try first, to be honest. I might try these first because I'm used to the paddle style. Maybe I like these more. And you also have the option to change the size of the thumbsticks with these convex style. I actually do prefer the concave. My thumb just rests better on them, but some of you guys might prefer these. I do think for the left stick, particularly for games like Call of Duty and stuff like that, maybe the shorter stick is better, and then the longer stick on the right side too, you can be more accurate with your shots. So I'll test these out as well, let you know what I think of them. So the reality is this: if you're a pro gamer, you don't want to be using the Bluetooth connection for your pad. Ideally, you want to be hardwired all the time. And if you're in the middle of a tournament for thousands and thousands of pounds, or maybe just for your fans on Twitch, you do not want the cable to fall out at a key moment in time, and then suddenly your player stops moving in the middle of a game, which could end up in you getting shot. So what Sony have brilliantly done here is actually created a locking mechanism so you can actually lock the wire into the pad, like so, essentially turning this into a wired controller. You never have to worry about accidentally unplugging it at any point in time. And that's a really good size cable too. And when you're not using the controller and you want to keep it safe, you do have this little trapdoor here that allows you to charge the controller inside the case, and you can even lock that in there if you wanted to as well. So if that gets pulled off the table, this hits the ground, it's going to be all right because this is a proper hard case. All right, we're going to run through quickly the first test run of the new pad, and straight away, as you can see, it's recognized the new controller and it's highlighting 3 key new features to this controller. Now it's explaining how you can remap the buttons for different games, and then using the modifier buttons at the base of the pad in combination with these buttons, you could toggle between those, and then also you could change the curves on the joysticks. And it's just explaining the function buttons, which are the modifier keys. So out of the box, when you hold down the function key and triangle, it will go to the default profile, which is the standard button layout. So now I'm going to set up a custom profile for Call of Duty, which is pretty much the only game I play at the moment. So I'm going to leave the default as function and triangle, and I'm going to change my Call of Duty profile to function and circle. Now the main thing for my Call of Duty setup is that the back paddles are slide and jump. So slide is circle on the default setup when you play Call of Duty, and X is jump. So there we go, that's pretty much all I need to do with regards to this, but there's so much more you can do if you want to. For example, you could invert the buttons here instead of doing it in game, so that every game you play, you can have R1 and L1 as your triggers as opposed to L2 and R2. But the only reason in the past people would want to do that is because of the instant trigger action, which you can now change on the pad with the little switch, which adjusts the amount of movement on the R2 and L2. So maybe I'll get back to playing with L2 and R2 as the triggers from now on. And it'll be annoying because I spent the last 6 months actually getting used to L1 and R1 as the triggers on most games. Anyway, next up we've got our sensitivity dead zones. And the stick right now is incredibly sensitive. The key here is you want to keep an eye on how much the dead zone at the middle is moving. If it's moving on its own, you want to adjust this. And also how quickly you can reach the edge of the circle. I'm going to leave it as the default curve, and I'm going to leave the dead zone as standard because it's a brand new pad. There shouldn't be any stick drift on this just yet. I'm happy with the default setup here. In the future, I will adjust this once I become more aware of how this pad is performing. Trigger dead zones. This is the difference between the dead shot trigger style and the regular. So watch the left one. I can gently push this, and you can see how it kind of can move up gradually. On the right one, I'm going to set it to the dead shot, and you can see it's just on or off. There is no in between. It's instant. And you can even adjust that more if you want to. Again, I'm going to leave it on default. It's a bit of a feeling out process for me right now. I want to see how it performs standard, and then I can make the adjustments later. Most pro gamers will automatically tell you to turn off the vibration, and I would agree with that. If you're playing professionally, you should probably turn it off, but I'm going to leave it on. I just want to get a feel for the motor in this pad, see if it's any different from the original one. And then your trigger vibration as well. The DualSense controllers do have that vibration in the triggers, which is a nice touch, and it makes your games way more immersive. So if you're playing storyline games, definitely want to leave this on strong. Now all we need to do is assign a shortcut to this. I'm going to set it to function and circle. There we go. And we can create 4 of these here, each one mapped to one of the main buttons on the pad. What I've realized after the first game playing with this pad is it's incredibly responsive, far more responsive than the standard one. When it comes to the back paddles, the little stubby ones on the right side, my finger rests really nicely on that one, but on the left side I have to reach a little bit. I'm not sure why that is, it's just how I hold the controller maybe, but what I'm going to do is actually change that left paddle to an actual paddle instead of the sort of stubby one. But I am noticing an immediate advantage over a standard pad with this. I will say, having used a custom pad in the past, it is a bit of a learning curve getting the hang of the back paddles, and once you do, you'll never have to take your thumbs off the actual control sticks to push a button, and that is a huge advantage, huge. Because normally what happens is if someone takes their thumb off the stick to jump, at that point in time they cannot aim properly anymore. So if you see that happening to your friends, and you don't want it to happen to you, you got to spend the money, okay? God damn. Join the game and there's a bloody VTOL in the air already. I've only just joined. Well, stay out of the way of that VTOL. What the f***? That dude just walked past like 5 of my team and shot me in the back. Hide in there. This is. Oh, I see her. Wait a minute. How's he done that? I was crouching. No. These are camping so hard. You see that? I just killed him with it. I hit him with the stun. It didn't even go off and it killed him. So get camping. Ah, look, again, the dude has walked past like 5 of my teammates and killed me. Like, what's that about? Oh, very lucky. Revenge. So with the shield, using the back paddles, I can sort of stand and crouch, which is key to using the shield. Very impressed with this pad. Very, very impressed.